Oh, GB1, did you cut out my signal? It's not that big of a deal. It's just the Mars Rover. It's already powered down. No one's going to miss it. It's just one more toy to add to the collection. We have a TARDIS with infinite rooms, GB1. It's not that big of a deal. Oh, our friends are here. 1 minute. Hey everyone, and welcome to Group Builders, the show where we create together. I'm your host, Disorderly Cone. Yes, we are on the lookout for the Mars Rover, and I'm hot on the trail. Or tracks, as you can see here. And I realize that not everyone can take home their own Mars Rover, but Metal Earth makes a really cool model of one that we can all build at home. Now, this is actually one that's been out for quite a long time, and one of the ones that I built right at the beginning of this hobby when I first started. It's not easy. There's a lot of tricky bits, and some of the instructions can be a little bit hard to follow too. What am I talking about? What tools do you need to build the Mars Rover? Well, these are all great questions, and we're going to get those answers, Groovers. Let's get down to the workbench and take a look at the package. And boom, there we have it. Both of our pages needed to build the Mars Rover. Now, if you have a package like mine, your instructions are white. But if your instructions are yellow, don't worry. Everything is exactly the same. The packaging is just changed. Looking at these instructions, I can already see a few things we need to talk about. The first thing we're going to take a look at is how to form all those small details on part 1, and we'll take a close look at that arm and how to shape those cones. Second, we'll talk about shaping our neck and head and how to connect them to our rover correctly. And finally, we'll talk about forming our wheels and also how to get our suspension all attached correctly. This rover definitely has a few challenges for us to get over, but I'm sure that we can do it together. I can also see we have a few new builders in the audience, so let's go over the basics. These metal models require us to cut out our pieces, then shape them using whatever we can. Once we have our parts correctly shaped, we can connect them together by bending or twisting our tabs. The way we bend or twist our tabs is indicated in the instructions by these circles and triangles. Personally, I always try to follow the instructions the first time when it comes to bending my tabs if I can. Then, when the build is complete, I'll go over everything again and change anything that might stand out. That's how you get that museum quality you hear so much about. GB1, this is getting a bit ridiculous. If you don't give me back my signal, I'm switching carriers. I'm serious, I know a few of them. Okay, maybe none that can go intergalactic, but you know what I mean, GB1, just give me back the signal. Okay, fine, I'll do the bit. Now, building the Mars Rover can definitely be difficult, and needing the right tools to get all of these little bits together is definitely the right idea. What tools do we need? Well, let's ask our tool expert. Timothy?
The Mars Rover is a primitive probe designed to gather information about a not-so-dead planet. With its capability, it would be lucky to see a snail, let alone beat one. Still, to build the Mars Rover, you will need nippers, tweezers, and mandrills.
Do you think you can give me access to that path lip of yours?
You wouldn't even help me find my socks this morning?
Yeah, on second thought, I don't think I look good with an eye stalk, so let's keep that to you. Now, as always, these are just our suggestions, and you really don't need anything but nippers and tweezers to get the job done. But of course, having the right tools will make everything a lot easier for you. Now, we've looked at our instructions, and we have all of our tools. There's only one thing left for you to do, and that's to press that like and subscribe button. We're currently trying to get to 4,000 subscribers here on the show, and really could use your help. Oh, hey, look at the sky. Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad you're going to be joining us here on future projects. We got all kinds of cool stuff coming out, and I'm not going to let you down. All right, now let's get down to the workbench and check out this Mars Rover. The Mars Rover from Metal Earth is a build that takes on the essence of two rovers, Spirit and Opportunity. Just like in their missions, this build might have a few surprises that will surprise even the most experienced builders. Let's start with the small details that we need to attach to part 1. For the most part, the details we start with are all small boxes. It's important to go right to the edge of the fold line with these pieces before bending any of the parts. Doing so will allow you to make sure you get a really nice even bend every single time. Now, before securing our details onto part 1, the instructions say to shape part 1. You can do this, but getting all the details secured will be a lot harder. To make things easier on yourself, go ahead and attach all the detail first before shaping part 1. You should be able to put most of the detail in place before needing to bend part 1 anyway. Yes, we can even add that arm on the front before committing to our shaping of part 1. And speaking of that arm, let's look at parts 16 and 17. These are cone shapes and they can be a little bit tricky to form for first timers. These pieces are best formed using your shaping tools or tweezers. To use your tweezers, slowly go around the part while slightly bending the edges. Increase your bend with each pass, and over time, the end should meet almost perfectly. When you're happy with your cone, you may need to bend the tabs slightly to get them into their insertion holes. Cones can be a little bit tricky. Look at that! Not too bad, but we're just getting started. Let's look at some of the smaller details on our solar panels. When it comes to these iconic pieces, it's important to make sure that all of our detail is orientated correctly, and we're not accidentally putting anything upside down. I know I've made that mistake in the past. Not just our solar panels too, but also these little guys, part 23. All 10 of them. We want to make sure that the etched detail is on the outside of the piece, so when bending these into U-shapes, keep that in mind. A couple of quick twists later, and there we go, our solar panels are complete. Now, let's move on to our second point, which is talking about parts 28 through 33. These parts are not overly complicated, but the instructions will have us installing things backwards. Wait, what? The instructions are wrong? Who can we trust? What's next? Plastic parts? Okay, GB1, you're right, that was a little bit dramatic, but still, this is where everyone gets caught up. You see, the instructions tell us to install part 29 backwards. If we compare the 360 picture to our instructions, you'll see very quickly that one of these things is not like the other. We would like our rover to look exactly like the one on the box, so keep that in mind. Part 29 is backwards, so 29 is backwards. Okay, now parts 31, 32, and 33 are bent very similar to each other. We can use a long cylindrical tool like a mandrel to be able to get some really good looking parts. Remember, we always want to start big when using shaping tools and then work our way down to the proper size. This will help us avoid any of those hot spots and create a really nice looking piece. Lastly, when connecting these parts, pre-bend your tabs. You can do this by matching up the parts and taking note about how much the tabs are off on each one of the holes. Remember to always secure your tabs away from other insertion holes, and also ensure that all of your seams line up. You don't want to have yourself blocked later on down the road or have any massive gaps in your pieces. Finally, the last thing we're going to touch on is the wheels and suspension. Much like our neck, we need to make a few cylinder shapes. These parts are best made using the tool method from earlier, but alternatively, you can use your tweezers. Start by making a small bend on one end, and then move down the part, increasing your bend with each movement. Over multiple passes, you should have the edges almost touching. Using part 48 to guide you with how much bending is needed to get a proper shape is a really good idea too. Now, we need to attach the wheels onto our supports. After bending all of our border details on parts 44 and 50, we need to pre-bend our tabs where our wheels are going to be going in. I unfortunately missed these tabs the first time around, and I had to fiddle a lot with everything to get them in the proper place. Don't be me. Pre-bend the tabs and don't accidentally warp any of your parts. Now, we need to attach these wheels onto our rover. Again, pre-bending your tabs and matching up your parts a few times will save you a ton of time and possibly a few scratches. Look at that! Our Mars Rover all complete. Not too shabby. I told you I would find it, GB1. You'll be very surprised how crafty I can be with a paperclip and a banana. We did it, Groove Builders. We built the Mars Rover from Metal Earth. This build was very complicated with all of its little details and, well, that little bit of instruction that was all messed up in there, but I think overall, if you were taking a look at those pictures, like I said, you were able to get this done very well, and all that little detail definitely looks cool too. Now, since releasing this build, Metal Earth has actually released another Mars Rover, which has a ton more detail on it, and you better believe that when I get my hands on that one, we're definitely going to be covering it. Now, can I recommend this build for new builders out there? Well, yeah, you know, I really can. Yes, there is some difficult pieces in here, like our wheels of the neck area here, and if you're not careful with those instructions, they can definitely lead you down the wrong path. But if you're observant, have a couple of builds under your belt, this one here might be the challenge you're looking for. I know that when I first started building, like I said earlier, I built my own, and this one here was actually built properly. This one here was actually built a little bit improperly. There's some pieces here that are reversed, and unfortunately it's super dirty right now, so we're not going to look too closely at that one. But yeah, I really do like this build. I think it's a really cool one, and I think if you're a fan of NASA and space, you're really going to enjoy it too. And with that, Groove Builders, we're at the end of our show. I had a really good time building the Mars Rover with you, and if you guys had a good time, don't forget to press that like button. For more videos like this, hit subscribe as well, as we got all kinds of really cool content coming out in the future. Want to help the channel grow? Check out groovebuilders.ca. We have all kinds of really cool models on there at great prices with fast shipping to the United States and Canada. Until next time, Groove Builders, keep building. Now, let me go find some places to put our identical little rovers. Where do you guys think we should go?